白岩学園3年 B 組の皆さん、こんにちは。
Good morning, everybody. Well, afternoon, I suppose. So here we are. It's a fabulous Thursday, and I've wanted to stream for quite some time during the daytime, so I've been doing little tiny inroads on daytime streaming, so I hope everyone's enjoying it as much as I do. And today we happen to have a personal favorite. This is Charles, Irreplaceable Charles. I'm just going to go ahead and loop in right now. So let me go ahead and get a quick check on... I just realized I'm also boomer teching because I forgot to put my freaking headphones on like a dork. Oh boy. Alright, I'm like 80% not retarded. And here we go. Alright, Charles, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going.
Okay, good. Here, volume. Alright, just go ahead and speak normally. I accidentally blew out the eardrums of a couple of people by having your volume too low or too high. Sorry about that, guys.
Whoops.
No, you're fine.
Check 1, 2.
You're completely fine. Anyway, so there's been a lot going on in the world, and immediately before we started streaming, you brought up a tweet that I think is totally emblematic of what's going on right now, and I kind of think this is worthy of some this is worthy of exploration. I genuinely think that this is the case. This was prompted by a tweet that I saw of Tim Pool earlier today, who is saying something like, we can't negotiate with these people. The time for arguments is over. And then there's like some heavy metal music playing, and then Tim's eyes start glowing. It's a great tweet. And I think that, basically the normies, they are catching on, not because they want to, but because it's impossible to ignore. And it seems like there's a huge sea change going on. It's very incremental, but it's starting to gain speed. There's a rapidity to the changes that is very interesting to watch. And Charles, you just told me about a tweet that I actually didn't know about until you told me about it. What was that tweet?
Yeah, it was by Cassandra Fairbanks. It's actually kind of like a chain of tweets. It's like I'm looking through her Twitter profile now. It's like, here's one of them. It says she's responding to one of the commies on Twitter talking about how Trump is a fascist. She says, "Kind of wish he was half as fascist as you people claim. This shit would have been over before it began." And another small thread, she says, "Oh, honey, I would vote for someone so far right that they make Trump look like a moderate centrist at this point. I'm definitely not alone either. I want someone that would make Tucker Carlson look moderate. Give me some hardcore law and order. The violent criminals are getting too bold."
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. These people are and that's okay. So there was also a Twitter poll, that one that we were just talking about, where it was like U.S. politics polls or something like that, and the poll closed like yesterday, I think, midday, and the poll was the simple question of, would you rather be A or B? A was communist, B was NatSoc. 75,000 people voted, and it was like 46.5% NatSoc. So that means that well over 35,000 people voted that they would rather be a NatSoc than a communist. That's a hell of a thing. That's spitting distance of 50%. And the freak out coming from the left on that was palpable. You could see it.
Yeah, they're scared.
Yeah. So, I mean, just imagine that poll being given to Cassandra Fairbanks. I think that without hesitation, she would say anything but communist. And she would go for literally anything but communist. And she would go for whatever's going to be the strongest against communists.
Yep.
Side note to that. Okay, bookmark what you were going to say because I want to hear it. Side note to that. Tim Pool actually brought up on one of his live streams, I should have clipped it. He brought up that it was the fascists who were opposing the communists. He actually said that on one of his streams.
Yeah, he was talking about how they were the kind of political backlash to the communists basically doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
See, they have this cult-like behavior that you and I have discussed before. And part of it is they don't want to listen to opposing arguments. So, back in the 20s and stuff, they would just hold, closely guarded, very private events. But now they just, block people and get people banned. And so they're all just kind of sitting in a room talking in a circle. And they're trying to out edge one another. Like it's a circle of just edge posting. And as they become more and more radical, their radical rhetoric slips out, and people like us who are trying to expose the harm that is definitely come about if these people are able to seize power, we show that to people and they're just shocked by it, because it's like, I was talking to one of my normie coworkers about this new pedo bill that's getting passed, that is probably going to get passed in California, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Oh, yes.
And they're just like, wait, what? And they straight up did not believe me. They called fake news to me. They were like, this is fake news, there's no way. And I had to like pull out my phone and pull up like the article and confirm it to them, like, look, this is real, this is not fake news, this is really happening, here are the people who wrote the bill, and this is what's going down. And they were just like, there's no way. Like and when the normie realizes that supporting the left, and like here's the thing, if you support the Democratic Party, then you are supporting the vehicle that is allowing the left to take ground.
Yes.
If you're supporting the left taking ground, then you are supporting pedophilia. And
by
the
default,
moment
that kind of is the case.
Yeah, like the moment that the lefty realizes that, or not the lefty, sorry, the moment that the normie realizes that normalization and legalization of pedophilia is actually unironically down the road from where they are if we keep going the way that we're going, the backlash against that in their mind is striking. There's pretty much no lengths they won't go to stop someone from trying to fuck their child. Because, I mean...
Well, that also has a lot of... that has a lot of rippling effects as well. Once you sexualize a child, you actually destroy that child's ability to pair bond later in life.
Yeah, it causes intense long-term psychological damage that, I mean, we've got 150 years of psychological research, and we are still, like, barely able to even come up with theories for how to even start repairing the damage that it causes.
Yes, basically that person, I don't want to say that they are ruined for life, but it's really, really intense, and that person needs to be handled very delicately, basically for the rest of their lives. It's very bad.
It's one of those things, you know, like every person is different, and humans are remarkably resilient creatures that are capable of overcoming some really intense trauma. But that doesn't, just because it's hypothetically possible for people to get over things doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be able to.
Yeah, and why subject a person to abuse in the first place? Why not just not abuse the person, or rather find ways to preclude it or to make it very difficult, if not possible?
Well, you know. I think that one of the... I think that kind of like the thing poisoning the ground here is that the politicization of sexual orientation has kind of created this false concept of sexual deviance being a community of people.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's this concept of the gay community, and I used to live in Savannah, Georgia. Obviously, I had homosexual coworkers, and I've had people that were gay that I would even consider friends. And it's, what you're doing in your house doesn't particularly concern me. But this is something that I've talked about with them, is I don't understand how the type of sex you like to have is a social or political identity.
Well, but keeping in mind that the people that are pushing this, they're not doing it because they believe in any of these things authentically. This is not organic. They're only doing it because they know that it's going to fracture society. That's the only reason they're doing it.
Right. That is very much the case. But it just boggles my mind. But going back to like what I was saying, like about them being perceived as a community. If you perceive LGBT as a community, then you perceive that community as having a particular culture. Well, then once you frame it like that, it's not that much of a logical leap to say, well, a lot of people in the LGBT community engaged in same-sex relationships with people that were much older than themselves while they were in their adolescence. They were like 13, 14 years old.
I've heard numerous stories about that.
Right. And because of that, rather than perceiving that as a source of trauma that kind of scarred them and gave them a warped perception of sexuality, they see that as just being a cultural element of this community.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why, like, I have a real, like, love-hate relationship with the field of anthropology, because I love the concept of trying to just study human cultures on the terms of those cultures, but at the same time, anthropologists have kind of taken a position of we shouldn't pass any kind of moral judgment on these cultures that we're studying. And I'm just like, okay, no. The moment that someone tells you you need to turn your perception of morality off, this is when you need to start throwing red flags.
Yeah,
like,
I have this idea in my head that like I wouldn't want to, because I think it's a good idea to absolutely put boundaries up for your people, but I wouldn't want to impose my thing on other groups, like, because then you move directly into imperialism, and I kind of want to refrain from that. But like,
right, I absolutely agree with you there. There's also, like, I think that, and this is where I kind of start to sound a little bit like a lefty. I actually really like the diversity of humanity. I think that it's good that we have a bunch of different kinds of human beings and a bunch of different cultures, so that what it means to be a human being can be expressed in a variety of ways.
Oh no, I unironically am 100% pro-diversity. And I mean that.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. I am absolutely, unequivocally, unapologetically pro-diversity. I want those other people to exist, and I want my people to exist as well. I want them to have a safe space. I want my people to have a safe space.
Exactly. I am picking up exactly what you are putting down. And it just... The thing is that, like, when you start trying to, like, blend them all together into one space, that's not doing anything to exemplify or encourage the diversification of the human species. That's actually just kind of blandifying.
It's a destruction of diversity.
Cheapening.
It's a destruction of diversity.
I remember, I think it was back in, like, 2016, 2017 maybe, there was this meme going around where it was like, when you go to Wendy's and you've got, like, the soda fountain, and there's Coca-Cola, and then there's Diet Coke, and then there's Fanta, and then there's, like, Mellow Yellow, and you've got all these different sodas. You've got a diversity of sodas, but each of them comes out of their own fountain, and each of them is stored in their own container. When you dump all of those sodas into one vat, you do not have a diverse soda. You have what is called, what in the 90s we called a suicide.
Yeah.
So, like, that analogy is just so on the nose.
No, it's completely accurate. I forgot about calling it, because I remember that back in the 90s I used to have those too now and again, and they were always terrible too. Isn't that funny? You would have them as a joke, and then you would drink it and you're like, this is actually terrible.
yeah, like, that's sometimes I think it was like, oh my god, anime nerd is showing, but I think there was a line in Fully Cully where the guitar chick, whose name escapes me, says, "Sometimes eating food you don't like can be fun too."
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what the suicide is. It's just, this is awful, but it's fun somehow.
Well, yeah. In my understanding is that in Japanese culture, the reason that they have so many like weird tastes, like bitter and sour and all this good stuff, is because the distaste makes the thing that you like all the better. And I kind of understand that. I ended up starting to like foods that I ordinarily would not like, partly because they make the things that I do like taste all the better. So,
Right. That's how I feel about peas.
oh yeah, God, peas are obnoxious, man.
Yeah, like they're awful, but I like having them there because it makes the mashed potatoes taste better.
Yeah, yeah. Then the that last bite of mashed potatoes that's just pure mashed potatoes and butter. That last bite is just fantastic. You get to savor it for a little while.
And it because the deliciousness of the mashed potatoes also has a kind of relieving effect as it washes the taste of peas out of your mouth.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I get it.
Oh, well, we just ADHD'd on this conversation super hard.
Yeah, it's pretty late. What are you gonna do? Anyway.
Going back to this excellent clip of Tim Pool
Yeah.
talking about how there is no negotiating at this point. See, Tim Pool is, I feel like Tim Pool is a perfect exemplar of the person who resists the red pill. They're just like ideologically committed to being a normie.
I gotta get that. Yeah.
And even he is like, yeah, I don't think we can talk to these people anymore. And I'm seeing that a lot.
Well, but that's
Like,
where we are, unfortunately. I do what I can to speak with normies now and again, and I mean they load up with assumptions immediately before you even start the conversation, and the only thing that they seem to be, this is in Los Angeles, of course, so understand that I am around the worst of the worst in terms of those who are indoctrinated, demoralized. But I try to talk with people about some of these things, and it just, I don't know what to call it. It's like, it just wafts off of them. You can sense the hatred in these people, and you can sense that given the opportunity, they would full blow, or they would full force Fed post immediately if allowed. And if I simply said any of the things right now that I'm saying right now, if I said any of those things to them in the calmest manner possible, they would immediately shut it down. They would just start yelling, and it's like, it's rough. What do you say? Yeah, I was talking with the. I'm sorry. I gotta finish this one thought, only because I forgot about it, and I just now remembered it. I was talking with a Christian, very much demoralized. He's one of these guys who's like, well, I mean, if it's in the Bible, I gotta do it. So of course he gives all of his money to like homeless people and whatnot. And it's like he's got a child, so he's talking about like helping out homeless people that are camping out in people's backyards or whatever, like really weird shit. And it's like, dude, stop it, you've got a kid. And this guy, I was telling him about the COVID and how I think that the possibility of a vaccine is silly because the way that the COVID-19 virus works, it's inherently prone to recombination, which means that even if you developed a vaccine for one specific combination, it would just slip through because it would recombine into something else. So your vaccine means approximately dick. It doesn't mean anything at all. And he was like,
Right,
yeah,
it's
well,
like the flu, but worse.
well, it's just, but nothing happens.
Because like they have to release a new flu shot every year for the same reason.
Yeah, but it doesn't work at all. The point is that it doesn't work at all. What you end up with is COVID still doing its thing, whatever the hell it's going to do, and all you did was introduce some new chemicals into your body, and that's it. Otherwise, it makes no difference to the COVID whatsoever. So it just doesn't matter. And he ended up saying something along the lines of, yeah, well, I mean, medical technology, you know, once a vaccine is released, then we can go back to work. And it's like, dude.
Well, see, like, I'm out here in the Midwest, and a surprising number of people have been telling me that they think the COVID vaccine will likely contain some type of, like, RFID microchip developed by Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what conspiracy boards are you reading? Because I'm not seeing any of that in my stream. Like, I've seen a couple of references to like Bill Gates because he said some stuff about wanting to try and make a universal vaccine. And
right, well, there were discussions of a vaccine that would alter your RNA such that it would start to produce its own antibodies to COVID. That was what was being discussed, and I think that's what your buddies are talking about. Now, that doesn't mean that that's totally going to happen. That just means that it's what was being discussed. That doesn't mean that this is what we will be, I was going to say forced to inject ourselves with. I'm not taking the fucking vaccine, period. In the end.
yeah.
But they want us to take it, to take some vaccine. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to go into people's arms. That just means that it's one of the things that they're thinking about. So anything that's going to change my RNA, I'm not a fan of. We'll see what happens once the vaccine, whatever it's called, is released. I'll read about it. I'm still going to deny it. I'm still going to say no, I want nothing to do with it. But we'll see which one I don't take part in. I've decided that I just don't want to deal with anything coming from the government at this point.
Correct. Like, and that's something that's a growing sentiment amongst Americans, is that like we're becoming very distrustful. Like, I mean, people like you and I, we've been distrustful for a while, but the normie is really starting to open up to the fact that the news is fake, and the government is quite possibly not representing what is in our best interests. Because imagine the mentality of a person who lives in some place like Minneapolis or Portland or one of these places, and like don't necessarily just think about the business owners, right? Because like the business owners, they've been getting kind of the highlight of all this because they're the ones who are getting their like businesses destroyed. But put yourself in the position of like the kind of default liberal who, you know, they're a Democrat because, you know, they grew up watching Family Guy, and Family Guy taught them that it's the conservatives aren't cool, right? They don't really watch the news. They don't really like do any of that stuff. They probably get most of their news from like Steam Gamer News or whatever the hell it is. And they go to work, you know, like they go in for their shift at work, but their work was burned down. And they're like, their boss, the owner of the business, is just like in shambles because he doesn't think that it'll ever reopen again. And they're just like, what the hell? And they see all these posts from their friends on Facebook who are like the actual committed lefties, and they're talking about like revolution and defund the police and all this stuff, but they're sitting there like, hey guys, like I was trying to buy a new skateboard and now I can't because I don't have a paycheck because you guys burned down the place that I worked at. And then like just a few days later, these like mobs start marching through their neighborhood, demanding that they be thrown out of the neighborhood and that the homes be given to black people for free in exchange for nothing. And they're just like, you know, what is going on? And then they actually do something that they haven't done in months. They turn on the news, and the news is talking about how these peaceful protesters just want justice for these innocent people who got shot by the police for no reason. Like, think about the mentality of that person who is like, you guys are just kind of like destroying everything that was making me able to just live my life. Like, I just want to skateboard and play video games, and you guys are taking that away from me. Like,
And if you
think about
object,
how many. Say what?
and if the normie objects, they get yelled at for being a racist, so you can't even object as your city is being burned down and people are chasing you down in the streets.
Right, and that's like the next step of it. They get on their Facebook page or their Instagram or whatever, and they complain because
I'm
they
sorry,
can't buy that skateboard.
Something came up. AFK BRB, 2 minutes. The mic is yours. My apologies. I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, man, go ahead. Well, like you, the audience, just like think about the mentality of these people. Like, just the normal American who doesn't watch the news like we do, they don't even have a Twitter account. They probably just have like a Facebook and an Instagram or something like that. And just one by one, like everything that, like every aspect of their normal life over the course of the past year has been totally annihilated. They can't go and hang out at their typical hangout spot because COVID shutdowns. Their job was ruined or destroyed by these mobs. Their hobbies are becoming too costly. Like,
My apologies.
everything.
I'm back now.
Oh yeah, you're good. I was just kind of like trying to coax your audience into just really think. Imagine that you're that person. Imagine that you are that person. I mean, who knows? Maybe you, the person listening, are that person. You sat there and watched like everything about your life just crumble away. And all of those things that you clung to, the things that made it to where you were able to ignore this stuff for as long as you have. Like, maybe it was sports. That's gone. Like, that's been totally politicized. In some cases, it's like shutting down.
You were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, and because you were like, how can we cancel football? And I was like, dude, that's a great idea. And by an amazing coincidence, it's kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah, it is, because like I was listening to a conversation between like at my work. I was listening to a conversation between my boss and a couple of his like close friends who happened to come in. And one of them actually said out loud, and I'm quoting here, "I just can't wait for football to start back up so that we can all crack open a beer and just be Americans again."
Oh, I love the naivete of that. And I wish that I could still have that sentiment. I'm not even joking. I genuinely wish that I could have that sentiment.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because, like, I heard that, and it was as if the metaphysical concept of boomerism was just concentrated into a syringe and injected into my eardrum.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, you think that that's going to happen? Like, I didn't say that out loud. I just kind of kept on doing my job while eavesdropping on their conversation. And they really thought that, but now I don't think they're going to be able to watch the game. And that's actually another thing. A lot of people that I know, they can't watch TV anymore because like they'll be watching their favorite show, like they'll be watching whatever it is, their soap opera, their sitcom, whatever. And during the commercial breaks, this like Black Lives Matter propaganda comes on during the commercial breaks, and they just can't take it. It puts them in such a stressed out mindset that they turn the TV off and have to go do something else. And it seems like that's kind of causing an increase in the amount of alcohol being consumed, but
Yeah.
which is harmful for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Side note to rather. Okay, so I've experienced that exact thing. There's a TV show that up until recently I was enjoying, and the TV show was from BBC, and it started in 1993, and it went for about 20 years, 20 years. So it ended in 2013, and it was a show about the archaeology of Britain. So they would traipse about the Isles, and they would dig things up, and they would find all manner of medieval castles and Roman forts and blah blah blah, and little Stone Age huts and so on. And it was really quite cool. I will absolutely admit that the first, 7 seasons or so, I loved them. Even noting that the host of the show was in fact a tribesman. And I'm sure you know where this goes from here. As the show progressed, I noticed a lot more injections of implicit politics, and up to and including one show in which they made a big fucking stink about almost slavery. And they failed, of course, to note that Britain ended slavery peacefully and freed all the slaves. So they made a big giant deal about how OMG, England had slaves one time, which, I'm not a fan of, so I'm not defending it. But I think it's absolutely worth pointing out, yeah, but that shit ended. They stopped it. They recognized that it wasn't a good thing, and they said, okay, we're done. That's a good thing. That's, in Jonathan Pole's words, that's a redemption arc, and they failed to note the redemption. And that series got worse and worse. There was one where they were talking about, it was some medieval castle that had a really impressive king attached to it. And the tribesman host, he was very, very dismissive to the point of being hostile to the topic through the entire show. Now, the actual Brits who were a part of the series and whatnot, they were enthusiastic about it. Meanwhile, the tribesman, fucking asshole the entire time. He was totally dismissive with regards to the culture and heritage of my people, and that pissed me off no end. And so even something as harmless as archaeology is completely being weaponized. And this was back in the early 2000s. We're not even talking about anything that's been happening recently. And of course, this one really bothered me a lot. As the show progressed, the quote cast, end quote, ended up getting more and more diverse. So that after a certain point, you ended up with, and no offense to the Pakistani people in general, like, whatever, I want them to do whatever they want to do. But it's like, dude, we're talking about the culture and heritage and history of my people. That should be dug up by my people with care and reverence, not by some people who openly despise us. And that really bothers me a lot. So, like, even casual viewing of fucking archaeology is now incensing to me. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah. And you talking about how this was in the early 2000s, it sounds like it was kind of like a slow boil. Like you put the frog in the cold water and then slowly heat it up.
Yeah, I can only imagine what those Brits are thinking now. I mean, my God.
I feel bad for Europe. Like I feel really bad for them because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because they actually let their governments take their guns away years ago. I don't even know what advice I could give them.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I've decided to start borderline Fed posting on British Twitter feeds just because they can't do it. So if they can't do it, and their retard laws don't apply to the US, then this is the time for us to start Fed posting on British feeds.
They'll just Twitter has a thing where it's like, this tweet can't be viewed in certain countries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, YouTube has the same thing, where it's like you'll post something and it just won't show up in certain countries based on like keywords.
Well, that's terrible.
Oh yeah, dude, the Orwellian nightmare that is social media it's really frightening, the degree to which it's bizarre, because it's like they've got a lot of control, but at the same time they don't seem to have as much control as they appear to, because it's like they can only censor your content if their algorithm is able to detect it, or if someone reports it.
Yeah.
Which their algorithms are getting more and more sophisticated, but it's kind of weird. There are cracks that you can slip through to try and get the truth to people.
That, and they are now incapable of completely controlling the narrative. People are openly rejecting it. Cassandra freaking Fairbanks, I mean, she's got to be like conservative tier up until recently.
Oh yeah, no, she's I think that she was like doing her best to be conservative tier, but now she's like, screw it, the gloves are off. And we're seeing similar stuff happen with Matt Walsh.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw. Oh, by the way, now that I think about it, Cassandra Fairbanks, she was being attacked for being racist or something, and one of the tweets that she linked, she retweeted a couple of my tweets, like 2 of them. I was really surprised by this. One of them was something to the effect of, racism is just a declaration of hate on the part of a lefty. It doesn't mean anything, and do not ever take it seriously, because it's only a declaration of hate. She retweeted that, and that was only like a few weeks ago. The only reason she retweeted it is because it was like 2 a.m. and she was not getting attention from anyone else, so I was the only person that was awake. So it's not special on my part. But anyway, the thing is that I would swear, like, I don't think that my tweet was the one that, got her thinking or whatever, but I bet you anything that there was a background chatter of similar thought patterns, and just imagine what normies are thinking right now with all of that. Like, the background chatter of, dude, fuck the lefties, fuck what they think, fuck what they say. Anyway, but go on, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm just it's interesting because we're seeing all of these people that, a year ago I was kind of ripping on Twitter for not being conservative enough, but it's looking like they're actually starting to kind of realize that. How can I put this? Okay. The kind of conservative, like the conservative Inc. crowd, they've been like paying lip service to opposing cancel culture while actively participating in it.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, I've seen that. It pisses me off.
They talk a big game about how like cancel culture needs to be stopped. Well, they won't say cancel culture needs to be stopped. They'll say that it's gone too far, right? Like there's and they'll point to folks like us, and they'll say, well, obviously these people need to be canceled.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying.
Yeah, Tim Pool does that all the time. He's like, and I disavow white nationalists. And it's like, you know what, Tim? Fuck off, man.
Yeah, it's like, keep doing that. Like, it doesn't matter, because it's like, how can I say this? I'm trying to delicately phrase things.
It's okay, man. We all have masks on now. It's fine. It's 2020. We all have COVID.
Yeah. When the communists like when the Bolsheviks decide they're not going to play around anymore and they're not going to use megaphones and fireworks and they're actually going to go in and clear out your neighborhood and force you out and just seize custody of your property, when that happens, the only people that are going to come to your defense, the only people that are going to actually be willing to put their lives in jeopardy for your sake are these people that you're disavowing. Like these people that you're like, and a lot of them aren't even Wignats or Nat Socks or any of these things. They're just patriotic Americans who got smeared with that label, and because they got like, you don't like, that's one of the things I want to say to like the conservative Inc. crowd is that like when these Bolsheviks tell you that they're not Bolsheviks, you know that they're lying and you don't believe them. When they tell you that real communism has never been tried, you know that they're lying and you don't believe them. But when they tell you that dude's a Nazi, you just blindly believe that to be the case and cooperate with them in expelling him from our economy, our society, our public discourse, our everything. Why is that exactly? Like, why do you believe these people when they say this? Like, and haven't you ever noticed that they never disavow their radicals? They never removed their radical, like their radical base. They never do anything to push those people out. They keep them as part of their conversation, because if they're not part of their conversation, then they're completely out of control. And you don't want the radicals to be completely out of control and only talking to themselves. Meanwhile, you are like falling for their trap, hook, line, and sinker by standing on these so-called principles and just attacking people who are on your own team for reasons that I still haven't gotten an adequate explanation for. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, can you hear all that in the background? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Were you...
Sorry, I just went on a little bit of a rant.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Sorry. When you said, what are you doing, that was that sounded like a direct question, but that was rhetorical. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it was a rhetorical question for like the Ben Shapiro types.
Yeah.
But Matt Walsh on Twitter has recently been he's been looking like he's about ready to start noticing things.
Really? I'm gonna see about looking at Matt Walsh. Let me see.
Because like put out a tweet where he was talking about how he laments the fact that he has to pass this down to his kids, like America as it exists now. And he's starting to like.
Wait, is this the guy that's blue check?
Yeah, blue check mark, works for the Daily Wire.
Wait, Matt Walsh blog?
Yeah.
Because he says theocratic fascist tyrant beekeeper in his bio now.
Oh snap! I didn't notice that update to his bio.
Yeah. I'm gonna follow this guy just because I want to see what he's all about.
He's really been tearing into BLM lately because that's safe to do now. Like the conservatives are getting pretty bold on their rhetoric about BLM.
Good.
Because which is good, yeah, but they should have been this bold 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, rather.
Yeah, well, but they're trying to play by the rules of let's play nicey nice, because everyone will play nicey nice back, and it has yet to occur to them that no. Your etiquette and delicacy is not going to be reciprocated. you can be as courteous as you want, but the people that are against us, they are not courteous. These are not nice people. So they have yet to fully process that these riots are literally the normie cons rather. All of these riots are the normie cons seeing full frontal non-reciprocation of courtesy and etiquette. And they're seeing it in 3D terms, with burning cities and people being chased down in the streets. So, well, anyway, we're talking about something else entirely, but something about that is like, it's mind-blowing to me. Oh yeah, that's right. They should have been going off on BLM ages ago, but yeah, they kept thinking that BLM was speaking in good faith, and they don't understand, many of them still don't understand that BLM is basically a communist front group, and that's it. So they have yet to fully process all of this information.
Yeah, it's because it's really hard to get information to a lot of normies, because they just don't spend a whole lot of time on social media or consuming any kind of like meaningful information. They watch a lot of TV or play a lot of video games, or they're just working. And so like they only get a surface level understanding of things, and it's not until BLM marches through their neighborhood that they really start to realize, whoa, wait a second. That like, why are they marching through our neighborhood? We've never attacked any black people. It's just.
Well, they're gonna get a big fat face full of it. I still have it in mind, and I guess this is a good a time as any. I want to get your opinion on this. I might have mentioned it, I might not have, but I'd like to run it over once again just to get your take on it. It's my opinion that the likely thing that we are looking at presently is that the Democrats know that Biden is going to lose, and they are intentionally throwing the election, and that all this talk of rejecting the results, I think, is going to blow over. And the only reason they're going to blow over the results, the only reason they're going to end up accepting the Trump slide 2020, which I do think is coming. So all of this is completely speculative, but whatever, moving on. Assuming that I'm correct, the reason that they will accept the election results is because if they don't, then later on, once Texas turns blue, there will be grounds for the opposite end saying, oh, well, no one's going to be accepting election results anymore across the board. Also, once Texas turns blue, the left, they win by default just because of demographics anyway. So they're going to want to keep the integrity of, quote, the union, end quote, so that they can have total control over the corpse of the empire. So I think that they're going to blow over it as a long-term strategy so that they can say, yeah, but if we keep everything intact, then we win the entire corpse totally intact. So we shouldn't start parsing the corpse now. We should keep it as a whole. That way we can have the whole thing. That's my speculation.
Perhaps.
What do you think?
I could see the thing is that would be the smart thing for them to do. And I'm not so sure they're that clever. Because see, something that I've been seeing is, have you noticed did you see the Axios article? Or Axioms article? Axios?
No. No.
Okay. It was titled The Red Mirage.
Oh,
they're straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're priming the American people for them to cheat. And the Washington Post published an article saying that basically violence isn't going to stop unless Biden wins in a landslide.
Yeah. That's I saw that, and I remember thinking, that's a fucking threat. That is a threat.
Yeah, it is. It is a straight up threat. But in addition to the fact that it's a threat, it's that we're faced with they're saying that it's going to appear that Trump wins in a landslide. And then once the champagne bottles are popped, it's going to flip and Biden is going to win. And if that were to happen, because I think that they're afraid that if Trump gets his second term, because like Trump, and this is something that all of us have been complaining about basically the entire time, is that it's almost as if Trump has been on a leash. And I think that they're afraid that in his second term, when he doesn't have to be afraid about whether or not he'll get reelected, he'll be completely off the leash. And that he might actually do some really hardcore immigration policy that will prevent Texas from turning blue.
Don't do
I'm
that.
saying that
no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't give me hope. Don't do that.
Like, disclaimers, clarifications. I'm not saying that he will. I'm saying that I think that the Democrats fear that he will.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going so bold right now. Because they're afraid that their plan of turning Texas blue will be cut short if Trump gets reelection. So they're willing to pull out all the stops and basically just, because I can't imagine a way between like between like trying to go for universal mail-in voting and all of the things since 2018 they've been doing to undermine the integrity of local elections by like so many different places. Illegals are allowed to vote in local elections and stuff now.
And that's how it is.
I can't imagine a way they could cast a wider shadow of a doubt on the results of the election. So I don't think they're trying to win. I think it's obvious to anyone that the Democrats are not trying to win. I think they're trying to make it so that you have plausible deniability on the results so that if they don't get what they want, they can challenge it. Because they know that the conservative types, the conservative Inc. crowd, they'll stand on their principles and they'll just accept the results of the election. So if the election goes the way that the Democrats want it to, then it goes the way that they want it to. If it doesn't go the way that they want it to, then they can challenge it. And something that a lot of the normal people I've been talking to lately are concerned about is they think that it doesn't matter what happens in November, we're going to have a civil war. Because if Trump wins, the people who hate Trump are going to not accept that. And if Trump loses, the people who love Trump are going to not accept that because they're going to say the Democrats cheated.
Yeah, this is my fear as well. So that's why I'm still kind of torn on what I think is going to happen. Because it's like, yeah, on the one hand, like it's totally reasonable to assume that they're going to try to play the long game. Like, that's the logical thing to do, but clearly we're not dealing with logical people. So like I'm really split. I really don't know what to think about any of this. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I've been right there where it's just straight up split in my mind and not knowing what to think about things. That's where I've been since like late May. And 2020 is a fucked up year, man.
Yeah.
It feels to me like God decided to join in on the shit posting.
Yeah.
So like I have officially like decided that I'm not even gonna try to forecast what is gonna happen next in 2020.
God, I know.
I was like, okay, like it's because like I used to do that. I used to try and like create like a logical chain of events. I used to look at what's happened, look at what's happening now, and try and like logically conclude what was going to happen next. But for the past 3 months, my brain has been a freaking flow chart. All right, it's not a line anymore.
No, I know. I'm all the way to the point now where I'm like, what kinds of decisions do I have to... Because amongst the reasons that I want to get out of California, one of them clearly is what they're going to end up doing to little kids, which I don't look forward to hearing about. That's going to be in the news, and I anyway, the other thing, there are two other things. The last two are absolute. Well, they're all linked. Every one of them is linked. The communists that control the government here in California, they're just going crazy. They're just passing all manner of retarded law. And amongst them is going to be a borderline ban on all firearms. That's in the works. That's going to happen. So I'm wondering to my... Because I'm trying to save up to get out of here as fast as possible, but some days I wonder... Do I have months? Do I have years? Do I have weeks? What the fuck am I even looking at anymore? I can't even tell. So it makes planning very difficult, and I know exactly what you mean. Like, how do you prioritize on decision making when you genuinely don't know what the landscape is even going to look like? In some cases, physically, what with all of the riots and burnings. So, I mean, thankfully they've calmed down. Apparently, all that nonsense that happened in Portland has cooled off because apparently there's some federal jurisdiction now with deputizing certain people. So there's been a reduction in the riots. Great, good. I'm genuinely pleased about that. At the same time, that puts us right back into the slow boil. And with the slow boil, it's still coming. It's just that we've staved it off. And I'm like, well, and again, what are we even looking at? Like, is there going to be a war? Is there not going to be a war? Is there going to be a World War III to cover for the American Civil War? Who even knows? I genuinely don't know. It's horrible.
Yeah, at this point, like, I'm half expecting dinosaurs to come back. Like, anything freaking happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's so bizarre. And I mean, maybe I could see them trying to use some type of large scale external conflict to try and like slapdash unify the quote unquote American people, but I don't think that shit's gonna work if they try it. And something that I think really should be more of a focus, like, but is not talked about in mainstream circles enough. Like, the normie just isn't getting to see. Look at the way that the right was treated at Charlottesville. All of the like, after Charlottesville was over, think about all of the criminal charges that were pressed. Think about all of the lawsuits from different organizations that were levied against the organizations that marched at Charlottesville. Think about like how the full weight of the law came down on all of the right-wingers who showed up at Charlottesville. And now look at the shit that Antifa and BLM have been allowed to just literally get away with scot-free.
Dude, my understanding, I haven't seen any news about this, so my understanding is that the guy, what is his name? Jay Danielson?
Yeah, James Fields.
No, Jay Danielson, the guy that got murdered in Portland a couple days back.
Oh,
Patriot Prayer guy. Okay, so that guy, Jay Danielson, no one has been arrested in connection with that murder.
Correct. And Poll identified the guy.
Yeah, so Kyle defended himself from 3 attackers, all of whom are felons. He's under arrest. A guy who defended himself is under arrest. Another guy got murdered. The murderer has been identified. There were other people at the scene. Other people are on camera somewhere. None of them have been arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only has Kyle been arrested, but his lawyer has been suspended from Twitter and I believe from Facebook.
I understand he's back on Twitter. This is my understanding. Let me go and check to be sure. I think he got reinstated like the following day. But the fact that he was even suspended from Twitter at all, as far as I'm concerned, is reprehensible. Also, apparently Facebook decided to ban Kyle. They declared that he was a mass shooter. And on those grounds, he's been deleted off of Facebook. It's like, no trial, just boom.
Right, so here we have a presumption of guilt imposed by our our plutocratic rulers. And that's the thing, is that oh well, the government isn't censoring you. It's like, well, that's the thing. Like the Bill of Rights protects us from the government because in the time that the Bill of Rights was written, the government was the ultimate authority. There was no power structure that was more powerful than the government.
Yeah.
These multinational mega corporations are the real government now because they're the one who really govern us.
Exactly, and this is a major issue as far as I'm concerned. We've entered a new form of authoritarianism, but the authoritarianism is now dictated by technocrats. And it's like that paradigm shift has yet to be made by boomers and a lot of Gen Xers. I think some of the Zoomers know, and some of the millennials must also know. But anyone over the age of 40 doesn't seem to understand the nature of this situation right now. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's why I've already got. You remember how we had a private conversation, not on stream, about how I've founded Life Exists After Doxing, and I'm trying to work on getting that together and putting together a business network to help catch our people when they're kicked out of the mainstream economy.
Ambitious.
Or the Bolshevik occupied economy, rather.
Yeah. It's a great idea. Well, it's a great idea, by the way.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we had talked about was that, if this doesn't work, I'll just try something else.
Yeah.
And I've already got my plan B for if I can't get Lead to work.
Yeah.
And if anyone listening in the stream, because I've got too much on my plate to be trying to run several different projects. If anyone wants to steal this idea from me and just start doing it, go right ahead. What do you think about creating an organization in which people subscribe and pay a monthly subscription fee, and in exchange for that monthly subscription fee, they are now citizens of a plutocracy, and we use the money that is generated through donations and subscription fees. You take that money and you just straight up buy voting shares in these multinational megacorporations to give the people representation on the boards of these companies. So it's you have the organization, people donate to the organization, and by donating to the organization, you get your right to vote. You take your vote, and the organization takes the money and buys shares in Google, for example, okay? And then you, the people who donate, once enough voting shares in Google have been acquired for us to put a representative on the board of Google, you, the people who have donated, vote on who that representative is.
Holy shit. There was a guy 10 years ago that proposed doing something like this, and he something happened where he either got sued or it got dropped because the people were the heads, the executives of international corporations, they got fucking spooked. And the idea is almost exactly what you're talking about. Buy A-list shares in major corporations. That way you have access to their board meetings, and it's not about you getting control. Instead, it's actually just about gaining information. It's about learning what they're doing. So
Yeah.
you go to, you buy the shares, you get into those meetings, you record them, you're a fucking shareholder. As a shareholder, you have a right to know what the hell is going on. Get enough people together doing that, you can start to change some things. Not because you're going to influence votes, you're going to start disseminating information. People will know what these corporations are up to.
Yeah, I think that there would be a lot of like that. That would have the potential to yield a lot of good, but at the same time, I'm already like seeing the headlines of like, alt-right neon Yazis are trying to stage a hostile takeover of the American economy. Like,
who cares? Fuck
that's
it.
how it would
I
be
don't
framed.
even care anymore at this point. I'll take it. Whatever. They're gonna lie anyway, so whatever. If you walk into it knowing that you're going to be attacked, I've reasoned recently that the only thing that we can do on a net level is just assume that you're going to be attacked. Assume that you're going to lose a pound of flesh. There's nothing that you can do about that. You're going to be hounded. People are going to try to ruin your life. The end. And you're going to lose friends. And you may end up losing your job. That's entirely possible. If you walk into all of this knowing that that's going to happen, it makes it a little bit easier. Then you just sort of walk around it and say, yep, that happened. I got smacked in the head and I got a bruise for my efforts, but take a hit to give a hit. So I think that if we were to find people willing to do that, I think it would be completely possible and doable. I'd be down. I would absolutely be down. I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I think that that'd be pretty funny to see. I mean, I'd pay the subscription fee.
Yeah. Or like you.
Sorry about that. My kitten Astartes has declared war on my feet.
Love it. My cat has declared a sleep-in on my chair. The worst part is she's actually in my regular chair, and I had to bring in a chair from the kitchen, so I'm actually sitting on a much more uncomfortable chair just so that my cat can have my normal chair. God, you think that you're not under the thumb of everything in the world. The next thing you know, you're like, wait a minute. Even my own freaking cat controls me. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like when you have a cat, it's like, oh my god, am I the pet?
It's terrible. It's such a pain in the ass. Whatever. Anyway. Yeah, I like your idea of the group membership into some kind of an organization. That's kind of an interesting idea. I kind of like that concept. You could have like a little like private organization. Imagine if you had a private organization, just invite only, and in that private organization, think of it like what is it? There's a bunch of elderly people that I know here in Los Angeles, and they all have some kind of it's a dance club, I guess. They do dancing at various community centers or whatever, and nice people. And what they do, they all show up, they bring food, and they all pay a door fee of like $5 or something, and that pays for the space. And they dance. And that's about it. It's not ambitious. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's not about anything other than just moving your body and keeping busy. I mean, it's kind of a good thing to do here in Los Angeles. People don't go outside and exercise much, so. But just imagine if we had something like that. Just imagine if there was some kind of a localized And it doesn't have to be localized in time space. It doesn't have to be localized geographically within a city or something like that. You can have a localized community on an intellectual level. And just imagine that this community, they were simply performing actions in concert in one way or another. I'm sure they would be able to find ways to accomplish very interesting feats just by having a bunch of people acting in concert. And I don't know what kinds of things one would do, but there's got to be ways to do that. And the concept of like fees, dues, putting money into a pot and using that pot, like basically like all of those gun organizations where they're like trying to sue California to convince California to recognize the Bill of Rights. A fool's errand, obviously, but just imagine that there is some sort of an organization that, instead of being all about trying to get people to recognize the Bill of Rights, it could be about anything at all. I kind of like that, and it would be kind of neat to start with something modest. But I like it. Subscription into an organization that's attempting to accomplish a simple and clearly defined goal. I like that. I think that's a great idea. And I also like the whole thing of going into a corporation. That in itself is funny. Like if it was a troll organization, and if it was only defined as a troll organization, and the goal is simply to get shares into a company and then decide on what prank is going to be accomplished in the board meeting. Like that would be something. That would be worth it.
Clownworld.gov.
Yeah, there you go. .org.
Well, it's been fun chatting, bro.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've got to get me.
No, for sure. We've been going on for a long time, so I only just noticed that we've probably been chit-chatting for like a really long time. Yeah, gosh, over an hour. Jeez. All right. Boss, thank you very much for popping by.
Oh yeah, man, it's been fun chatting.
Yeah, for sure. Next time, just we'll keep in contact. You go ahead and have fun. Is there anything that you wanted to leave us with? Is there any like anything you wanted to plug or something before you take off?
Yeah, I did want to plug to your audience that I kind of like casually mentioned it a minute ago, but I founded an organization called Life Exists After Doxing. The goal of this organization is to try and create a infrastructure to help people who have had their lives damaged or destroyed by what's commonly referred to as cancel culture. I did an interview with JF on the public space. You can look into that, or you can go to lifeexistsafterdoxing.com, and you can read more about the organization and like its goals there. And there's also a contact us form if you want to get in touch with us for like if you or a loved one have been doxxed and need help, or if you're like a business owner or you exist in some kind of employment capacity and you're able to help, please like don't hesitate to reach out to us. Or if you just have ideas for ways that we could go about better achieving our goals, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll be in contact, and obviously you're always welcome to pop on whenever. But anyway, thanks, boss, and I'll see you later.
All right, take it easy, man.
Yeah, cheers. All right, that was Charles, Irreplaceable Charles, and I guess that's actually going to conclude for today, because I really should be like, there's certain kinds of responsible people things that I should be doing, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to go and be responsible, accomplish the goals that I need to accomplish. I didn't check into chat nearly as much as I wish that I had, but thank you everybody for popping by. A lot of familiar usernames here. Thank you, everyone. I'd go through and like list everyone, but I know you know who you are, and thank you. And also, I'm going to be streaming later on tonight as per usual on my DLive. So I suppose I'll see at least one or two of you there. And I guess that about does her. Wait, am I? Yeah, okay, yeah, we're back on the main. Yeah, basically, have a good night, you guys. Just as we had discussed earlier, it's difficult to figure out what's going to be happening in November, but, no matter what happens, it's going to be spectacular. So do what you can to maybe talk to some of your friends and neighbors, get your family as close to on board as possible with the idea that they're going to want to be ready for some kinds of bizarro goings on, because you never know what's going to happen. So now is the time to, identify what ducks you have and get them in a row. And there you go. Okay, guys. Remember to brush and floss, read Galatians and get woke. Pray to God, definitely pray to God, especially these days. And also pick up a Casio A158, a brilliant watch. Very inexpensive, less than $20, and every bit as reliable as a Rolex for a fraction of the cost. And rather than blowing through your battery trying to tell time, it's just on your wrist. Alright guys, have a good afternoon.